After 6 years in the shadows, Victoria's Secret burst back onto the runway last week with a show that promised reinvention. With Cher belting out hits, plus-size models owning the catwalk, and Gigi Hadid soaring in those iconic wings, it was clear the brand was trying hard to prove one thing: we're not who we used to be.
For generations, Victoria's Secret defined sexy, with its barely there bras and underwear and the angels who sold them.
But behind the glittering lights and faux feathers lies a darker story. Once the queen of the fashion world, Victoria's Secret has been rocked by scandal, accused of pushing impossible beauty standards, and caught in the crossfire of shifting cultural tides. The 2024 show may be its flashiest attempt at a comeback, but can a few tweaks to the lineup really wipe away years of controversy? To understand how this lingerie giant went from ruling the runway to fighting for survival, let's rewind to its beginnings and peak. The time when most of us were all glued to our TVs, watching supermodels with wings stride through clouds of glitter, believing they were the definition of beauty. Victoria's Secret made its highly anticipated return to the runway just last week, and if social media is anything to go by, it's clear the brand wanted to make a splash. The 2024 show didn't just bring back the famous wings, it brought something new: diversity. Plus-sized models, older women, and a more inclusive cast strutted down the catwalk, aiming to show that Victoria's Secret had learned from its past. Icons like Cher lit up the stage, belting out "Believe," while models like Gigi Hadid and Ashley Graham walked with a confidence that felt refreshing, yet familiar. There were faux feathered wings, PETA approved, of course, and glittering sets that recalled the brand's glory days. But the vibe was different. Less about sex appeal and more about empowerment. The show was streamed online instead of airing as a television special. And while it drew buzz for its bold attempt at reinvention, it also raised a few eyebrows. Critics and fans alike are left wondering, is this really a transformation or just a makeover with the same old foundation? After 6 years of silence, Victoria's Secret is clearly hoping this rebranded show will erase the damage done by years of controversy. But to fully understand where the brand is today, let's rewind to the glittering rise and explosive fall that led them to this moment. Back in the late 70s, Victoria's Secret wasn't even close to the global juggernaut it would become. It all started with Roy Raymond, a man who felt totally out of place buying lingerie for his wife in department stores. So in 1977, he opened a store that was designed to make men like him feel comfortable. Think boudoir vibes with a touch of mystery, all wrapped in a neat little package that hinted at something hidden beneath the lace. But the real transformation came in 1982 when retail mogul Les Wexner stepped in. Wexner didn't just save Victoria's Secret, he completely reimagined it. He took the focus off of men's fantasies and turned it into something far more powerful: women's desires. This wasn't just about lingerie anymore, it was about creating a world where women could feel confident, glamorous, and in control. By the time the 90s rolled around, Victoria's Secret wasn't just selling underwear, it was selling a lifestyle. The brand's famous fashion shows became cultural events, featuring supermodels like Tyra Banks, Heidi Klum, and Gisele Bündchen. These women weren't just models, they were angels, striding down the runway with massive wings and million-dollar bras. It was a spectacle like no other, and millions of viewers tuned in each year to watch what felt like the Super Bowl of fashion. At its peak, Victoria's Secret was everywhere. The stores, the catalogs, the ads, it all came together to create a fantasy that women wanted to be a part of. It wasn't just about buying a bra, it was about buying into a vision of beauty, confidence, and sex appeal. But as time went on, it became clear that Victoria's Secret's dominance was starting to fade. We've all seen the headlines. The controversy that surrounded Victoria's Secret for years has been impossible to ignore. But let's take a step back and look at how deep this dark side really runs. As the brand paraded its iconic angels down glittering runways, behind the scenes, a very different reality was unfolding. The fall began in 2018, when Ed Razek, Victoria's Secret's chief marketing officer, made a shocking statement that shook the brand to its core. In an interview with Vogue, Razek bluntly dismissed the idea of including transgender or plus-size models in the famed fashion show, saying they didn't belong in the brand's carefully curated fantasy world. His justification? The show is a fantasy. It's a 42-minute entertainment special. That statement crystallized what many had begun to feel, that Victoria's Secret was clinging to an image of beauty that felt increasingly irrelevant and exclusionary. The backlash was immediate. Celebrities, models, and everyday consumers slammed the brand for being out of touch with modern values. Even former Victoria's Secret angels began speaking out. Model Karlie Kloss, who had once walked the runway in those iconic wings, later expressed regret about being part of a show that, in her words, didn't reflect her values. In 2019, Kloss told Vogue UK, "The reason I decided to stop working with Victoria's Secret was that I didn't feel it was an image that was truly reflective of who I am and the kind of message I want to send to young women around the world." But Rozek's comments were only the tip of the iceberg. Beneath the glamorous surface, stories of mistreatment and misogyny began to surface. In 2020, a bombshell report by the New York Times exposed the toxic culture that had festered within the company for years. Dozens of models and former employees came forward, describing a workplace where bullying, harassment, and body shaming were rampant. Rozek himself was implicated, accused of inappropriate behavior, including touching models without consent and making demeaning comments about their bodies.
I mean, I once had one of the top photographers from Victoria's Secret say, "If you got skinnier, you will become an angel."
The revelations didn't stop there. As more stories emerged, it became clear that this toxic culture went all the way to the top. Les Wexner, the billionaire owner of Victoria's Secret's parent company, L Brands, was embroiled in scandal over his long-standing ties to Jeffrey Epstein, the convicted sex offender who used his connection with Wexner to lure young women under the guise of scouting for Victoria's Secret. The Epstein-Wexner connection further tarnished the brand's image, leading to public outrage. Wexner expressed embarrassment over his relationship with Epstein, but the damage was done. The once revered fashion empire now found itself mired in scandal and disgrace. By 2019, the once iconic Victoria's Secret fashion show was officially canceled. The numbers spoke for themselves. Viewership had plummeted from 9.7 million in 2013 to just 3.3 million in 2018. And the public had grown weary of the brand's refusal to evolve. Meanwhile, its competitors were thriving with their body-positive and inclusive approach, while Victoria's Secret was stuck in the past, pushing an idealized version of femininity that felt increasingly out of touch. Perhaps most telling was the public outcry from former models. Bella Hadid, one of the most famous faces to walk for Victoria's Secret, openly spoke about feeling uncomfortable during fittings, with the New York Times reporting how she had to endure inappropriate comments about her body. Former angels signed open letters demanding change, calling for the company to take meaningful action to prevent abuse and create a safer environment for models.
I got a very interior glimpse at the machine that was running at that time, and it was really sick. It was really unhealthy.
Behind the wings and the glittering facade, Victoria's Secret had long been selling a fantasy, but it was a fantasy built on exclusion, impossible standards, and a toxic corporate culture. As more women began to demand authenticity and inclusivity, the brand's refusal to adapt left it in free fall. The empire that had once ruled the runway was collapsing under its own weight, with its fashion shows canceled, its reputation shattered, and its future hanging in the balance. As if their own controversies and downfall weren't enough, Victoria's Secret found itself up against fierce new competition that seemed to understand the changing times far better. Brands like Savage X Fenty and Aerie weren't just offering lingerie, they were redefining it. Leading the charge was Rihanna's Savage X Fenty, which quickly became known for celebrating women of all shapes, sizes, and ethnicities. Their runway shows, filled with real, unapologetic women, felt like a breath of fresh air compared to Victoria's Secret's narrow beauty ideals. Consumers were shifting too. Women wanted more than just push-up bras and airbrushed models. They sought comfort, inclusivity, and authenticity. Brands like Aerie and Third Love capitalized on this, offering body-positive campaigns and a wide range of sizes that made women feel seen. Victoria's Secret, meanwhile, was still pushing its fantasy of slim, glamorous angels. an image that felt increasingly out of touch. The shift in beauty standards was part of a larger cultural movement. Gone were the days when one size fit all. Bralettes and wireless bras became the new go-to, and comfort was key. Brands like Savage X Fenty didn't just showcase lingerie, they turned their shows into inclusive multimedia spectacles that reached a wide and engaged audience, offering something Victoria's Secret was failing to deliver: relevance. As these competitors thrived, Victoria's Secret found itself in an unfamiliar position, struggling to keep up. The brand that once defined sexy was no longer leading the conversation. It was now just another player trying to find its footing in a world that had moved on. In response to mounting criticism and declining sales, Victoria's Secret launched the Victoria's Secret Collective, replacing its iconic angels with ambassadors like Megan Rapinoe and Priyanka Chopra Jonas. The 2024 fashion show reflected this shift, featuring a more diverse range of models and performers like Cher, aiming to embrace inclusivity and body positivity. Behind the scenes, leadership pushed new product lines like athleisure, expanding beyond the traditional lingerie focus. However, doubts remain. Critics argue the brand's changes may be more reactionary than authentic, and some feel its controversial past still casts a shadow. With competitors like Savage X Fenty leading the inclusivity movement, Victoria's Secret faces a tough path ahead. Victoria's Secret's future hinges on whether its efforts to modernize resonate with consumers. With fierce competition from brands that have mastered authenticity, the company is making moves to refocus on personalization and expand into everyday wear. While the brand has begun to pivot, some insiders, like former Angel Heidi Klum, believe that the changes are a start, but it's no longer just about sexy. It's about being real. Still, the big question lingers. Can Victoria's Secret truly move forward? While the 2024 runway show showed signs of a brand trying to reclaim its place, the journey to complete reinvention is far from over. In their bid to stay relevant, Victoria's Secret has been actively rethinking its entire business strategy. The company recently announced plans to focus on technology-driven personalization, aiming to create a more tailored shopping experience through their app and digital platforms. There's also talk of expanding their product lines beyond lingerie and exploring more athleisure and everyday basics, an effort to capture the modern consumer who values both comfort and style. The brand's leadership has also doubled down on listening to its customers. Sarah Sylvester, Executive Vice President of Marketing, emphasized that the future of Victoria's Secret will be shaped by what women truly want, stating, "We're evolving to create a brand that is by women, for women." But despite these efforts, skeptics remain. Fashion journalist Chantal Fernandez noted in an interview, "The messaging still feels muddled, and it will take more than a few shows to convince consumers that real change is happening." Ultimately, the future of Victoria's Secret depends on whether it can fully embrace authenticity and inclusivity, not just as a marketing tool, but as a core value. With fierce competition from brands like Savage X Fenty and Aerie, the pressure is on. Whether they rise to meet the moment or fade into the background of a rapidly changing fashion landscape remains to be seen. For now, Victoria's Secret has taken a step forward, but the path ahead will determine whether it's enough to regain its former glory or forge a new identity entirely. What are your thoughts on Victoria's Secret? Do you think they can make a comeback? Let us know in the comments. Thank you for watching. Till next time.